A few weeks ago, we counted down the top 50 players in Barcelona history, but today, we're just talking about the players that came from the Masia. No Johan Cruyff, no Laszlo Kubala, and no Ronaldinho. La Masia, the farmhouse, was voted as the dedicated football school, along with the redevelopment of the area and the construction of the mini estadi in 1979. La Masia was inaugurated in October of that year. Since that time, particularly since Johan Cruyff arrived in 1988, La Masia has produced some of the greatest footballers the world has ever seen. Hi, I'm Dan Hilton, and this is the Barcelona Podcast, YouTube exclusive. Since the top 10 of this list will be so well known, I wanted to start with some honorable mentions. And it's a pretty hefty list because I had a hard time separating some of these players. The honorable mentions basically break down into what could have been, both then and now. But first, let's mention the Blaugrana players through and through that just missed out on the top 10. Guillermo Amor, Sergio Busquets, and Albert Ferrer. All three made their first team debuts under the dream team era of Johan Cruyff and served the club well. Thiago Motta, Pepe Reina, and Mikel Arteta are the what could have beens at Barca. But it's hard to argue why they left. Pepe Reina was told he could leave when Barca brought in Robert Anki, and Mikel Arteta never made a first team debut, as even in 2002, the midfield felt a bit crowded. Thiago Motta was one of the players in that midfield at the time, and while he spent a few seasons at Barcelona, injuries ended his time at the Camp Nou early, and he needed to leave for Atletico Madrid to fight for his career, one that did wind up being pretty long. The other group of honorable mentions are all players that could return to the Camp Nou someday, and with the exception of Mauro Icardi, currently at PSG and the least likely to return to Catalonia, are all 25 years of age or younger. Adama Traore has broken out at Wolverhampton. Andre Onana is Ajax's number one in net, and maybe a top 10 goalkeeper in the world. Hector Bellerin left La Masia at 16 for Arsenal, and is now a vice-captain at the London club. Alex Grimaldo is one of the top left-backs and set-piece specialists in the world at Benfica. And 21-year-old Dani Olmo made the move to RB Leipzig from Dinamo Zagreb in January. Some of these names could return to Barca, but as we know, unless the player forces the move, getting a La Masia product to return back to their roots is an expensive endeavor, and one that not everyone at the club even agrees with. Speaking of returning to the club, number 10 on our list of the top players from La Masia is Cesc Fàbregas. He was the prodigal son returning, but it never turned out that way, and Culés may not remember his time at the club with too many fond memories. Yet, the Spanish midfielder is still one of the best players to ever play in Barca's academy, and the first of the memorable 1987 generation. He began his time in La Masia at the age of 6, before moving to London in 2003 to play for Arsenal. In hindsight, this was certainly the best move for his career. Would he have displaced one of Barca's midfield starters? I'm not so sure. At Arsenal, he thrived, did the seemingly impossible, and replaced the legendary Patrick Vieira in midfield and became the team's captain. He returned to Catalonia in 2011 and left again in 2014 for Chelsea. The World Cup winner and Euro champion doesn't get the credit he probably deserves as a player, because not only did he leave and cost the club 35 million euros to return, but that second act just didn't go as planned. Speaking of Chelsea, current Blues winger Pedro barely makes this list, having come to La Masia in 2004 at the age of 17. Credit to the Barca scouts, as the winger arrived from current 4th Division squad CD San Isidro from the Canary Islands. Fortunately for Pedro, his time in Barcelona B coincided with Pep Guardiola's return to the club, and he then got his promotion to the first team, soon after his boss got the promotion too. The memorable stat you always hear is that he became the first player in football history to score in 6 different official club competitions. But realistically, he's remembered for the big goals he scored in the Blaugrana colors. In the 2010-11 season, he became the regular starter in the squad. He scored against Real Madrid twice that season, once in the 5-0 win in November and again in the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals. His most famous goal, though, is probably the opening goal in the 2011 Champions League final against Manchester United, a 3-1 win for Barcelona. A World Cup winner and European champion, 5-time La Liga winner, and 3-time Champions League winner. A quick reminder that making the top 10 of this list is easier said than done. Born in Barcelona, Víctor Valdés joined the academy in July of 1992 from local side Peña Cinco Copas. By September, his family moved to Tenerife, and he spent 3 years on the island before returning to La Masia in 1995. His return benefited both sides, and by 2002 he debuted for the first team. Originally the backup to Roberto Bonanno, Valdés became the starter for the 2003-2004 season, and didn't give up the gloves until he tore his ACL in 2014 and moved to Manchester United that summer. But before he left, he won 21 trophies with the club, including 6 La Liga titles, 3 Champions League trophies, and 5 Zamora trophies. 535 official appearances in all. Valdés had the proper mentality to survive in the competitive and bright lights of the Camp Nou, taking an early career demotion to Barcelona B by Louis van Gaal to fuel the fire that was his assiduous nature and desire to succeed. He began to excel under Frank Rijkaard, but his time under Pep Guardiola took his game to a new level. Never afraid to come off his line, go back and watch some of Barca's most important matches of the 21st century. More often than not, you'll see 1 or 2 saves that you may have forgotten when Valdés saved Barca's bacon. A lad from the rather well-to-do Barca neighborhood of Fàbregas, Gerard Piqué joining La Masia was almost a foregone conclusion. He got through his trial as a striker and gained entry. He was made a socio the day he was born by his grandfather Amador Bernabeu, who has been a director at the club under a number of different presidents over a few decades. In the academy, he usually played as a defensive midfielder, and was a winner with Alavin A, Infantil B and A, Cadet B and A, and Juvenil B and A. Then, just like another member of the talented 1987 generation, he left the club before he signed his first professional contract. He moved to Manchester United, who sent him on loan in 2006 back to Spain with Real Zaragoza, after he had a tough time breaking in with the Red Devils. He played 1 more season for Man U when he returned to England, but in May of 2008, Barca came calling and brought the Catalan home for €5 million. Not a bad piece of business, all things considered. Piqué has had a number of centre-back partners in his time with the club. Carlos Puyol, Javier Mascherano, Samuel Umtiti, and Clement Lenglet most notably. And the tall, handsome, charismatic defender has always made it work. He was named the league's best defender only once in 2010, but his 28 trophies speak for themselves. He's been a top centre-back in the world for over a decade, a World Cup winner, a European champion, and one of the best that La Masia has ever produced. Of all the players on this list, Pep Guardiola was the first to make the journey to La Masia and immerse himself in his new life of football. Guardiola moved from the countryside of Catalonia, the small agricultural town of Santpedor, to the farmhouse next to the Camp Nou at age 13. Longtime Barca scout and a man who should be remembered for his eye for talent, Oriol Tort, discovered Guardiola and was essential in bringing him to Barcelona. Johan Cruyff, who in 1989 made sure the player was promoted from Juvenil A to Barca B and training with the first team, finally gave the deep-lying playmaker his debut in December of 1990 in a 2-0 win over Cadiz. He was on the younger end of the infamous Dream Team, but after winning an Olympic gold medal at the Camp Nou in 1992, it was clear that he was going to be a legend at the club. 11 seasons, 19 trophies, and 479 games later, Guardiola left Barca in 2001 to take on new challenges as a player. Unlike so many other players that seem to take any contract offered to them in the later stages of their career, Pep took the unusual route of announcing that he was leaving without anything else lined up. Yet, 2 trips to Brescia, Roma, Al Ahly in Qatar, and Dorados in Mexico were all steps taken for specific reasons, whether it was to learn Italian football, play with friends, or to keep his word to old colleagues. His managing career obviously has already come to overshadow his playing career, but Pep Guardiola was an all-time great on the field, and most importantly was a pivotal figure in the idea that Barcelona need to rely on the cantera to be truly great. Of all the players on this list, Sergio Busquets was probably the latest bloomer, though he did still start to show the flashes of the legend he is today in his teens. Instead, I should say it took Barcelona a while to find the Sabadell-born midfielder, who played for Badia, Barberera Andalucia, Lleida, and Java Teresa before being brought to La Masia in 2005 to join up with the Juvenil A's. 2 seasons there got him promoted to the B team, and like Pedro, Busquets was finally in the right place at the right time. B-team manager Pep Guardiola utilized the player heavily in a side that won promotion back to the 3rd division. By December of 2008, he was breaking into the first team, and signed a contract extension that raised his buyout clause to €80 million. Then the winning really started. 29 trophies, a World Cup, a European Championship, Busquets is a proven legend already. Opponents and non-Barca fans get frustrated by his antics, but like any defensive midfielder, he uses a combination of technical skill, tactical fouling, tough tackling, and sometimes a couple of tricks that may be considered some of the dark arts to support the players in front of him. Guardiola was arguably the greatest defensive midfielder Barca had until Busquets came along, and it's somewhat poetic that the coach that made him was the same one that led him to outshine him. Aged 23, Carlos Puyol had not won a single trophy. He was brought to La Masia in 1995 as a winger, then a fullback, and finally a centre-back. Whether it was Louis van Gaal's persistence that he get a haircut, or just that the club almost let him go to Malaga or Sevilla while he was finding his footing with Barca B, Puyol was a player that almost wasn't. Born in the remote Catalan village of the Pobla de Segur, the saggy-haired boy was the younger of two boys, and an avid Barca supporter. All of his patented hard work and determination paid off when he arrived at La Masia as a 17-year-old. Van Gaal may not have liked his hair, but he gave him his debut in 1999, alongside a number of big-money signings and not-so-great results. His versatility along the back line gave him enough chances to prove that his tenacity, mentality, and physical gifts would make him a fixture in Barca's 11 for 15 years, retiring in 2014. The World Cup and the European title are the Spain victories, and 6 La Ligas, 6 Copa del Reys, 27 trophies in all fill up the Barca cabinet. How do you calculate heart, though? Maybe with memories. Kissing the captain's armband at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2009 in that memorable 6-2 win, and coming on late as a sub in 2011 in the Champions League final before handing over the trophy to Eric Abidal de Reyes are some of the highlights. Andres Iniesta is not Catalan, but the shy boy from Albacete moved to La Masia at the age of 12 and remained at Barcelona until leaving for Vissel Kobe in 2018. The story of his arrival is an interesting one. Oriol Tort, the professor, wanted to break a rule at the time that said La Masia would offer entry to players 14 years or older because he really wanted to bring in a talented 12-year-old named Jorge Torretiero that they had seen alongside 12-year-old Iniesta at a youth tournament. Torretiero's father wasn't too pleased with the future scholarship that was offered, so the compromise was to bring both boys early. Andres was famously very unsure about the move, and those fears came more to the forefront as he and Torretiero were the youngest teens in the farmhouse. The elder Víctor Valdés helped them out, and success in the 1999 Nike Cup reaffirmed to little Iniesta just how talented he could be with patience. He made his full debut in 2002 at the age of 18. There were rumors that he or Messi could go on loan to Rangers in Scotland, as he was just starting to fit into the first team. But luckily, there is no revisionist history, and he played his way into superstardom. The game-winning goal in the 2010 World Cup final has forever endeared him to Spaniards everywhere, and his 32 trophies with the Blaugrana did the same for him in Catalonia. 674 official appearances in the shirt, third on the all-time list. And remember that last-minute equalizer at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea in the Champions League semi-final. Not often are the terms timid and clutch used so much in tandem. The timid nature of the teenager from Albacete has disappeared a bit, and what remains is the articulate but still soft-spoken Don Andres that is one of the greatest playmakers that the game has ever seen. Xavi came to La Masia at the age of 11 from Terrassa, about an hour outside of Barcelona. A feather in his cap was that his Andalusian father Joaquim had played professionally in the second division for a time and briefly in the first division with Sabadell. He made his first team debut 7 years after arriving in the academy, in 1998 against Mallorca. For quite a few years he was being utilized as the pivot, particularly by Louis van Gaal, who the player didn't have the best relationship with. But Frank Rijkaard gave him the chance to play farther up the field, and that's when he got the chance to flourish forward in the role Culés will remember him by. He played as the pivot for so much of his time in the academy, as well as under Van Gaal, Lorenzo Herrera Ferrer, Charlie Wusak, and Rodemir Antic, before Rijkaard set him free and Pep Guardiola helped him reach the levels of immortality. Xavi made 767 appearances with the club, more than any other player in Barca history. He scored 85 goals and was twice voted third in the Ballon d'Or voting. 8 La Ligas, 3 Copa del Reys, 4 Champions Leagues. Like so many players on this list, his success relied so heavily on some good fortune and the decisions of others as to what was best for his future. Yet, the ability to fulfill the expectations, and far exceed them in Xavi's case, is what separates the good players from the truly special, and Xavi is one of the greatest to ever play. Last week we broke down the difficult signing of the best player in Barcelona history, so check that out right up here or down in the description. Because number 1 on our list is none other than Lionel Messi. Arriving from Argentina, from Newell's Old Boys, officially signing at the age of 13, Messi was able to get his growth hormone treatment and found his way at the club. At La Masia, he was always a standout player in the field, and even a mask couldn't stop him from leading a truly remarkable class of prodigies. Piqué, Fàbregas, Victor Vázquez, Marc Valiente, and Victor Sanchez. But Messi shone the brightest. His league debut came against Espanyol in October of 2004 at the age of 17, and then his first goal came against Albacete in May of 2005. The first time the ball went into the net off a sparkling feed from Ronaldinho, the goal was ruled offside. A few moments later, another feed from Ronaldinho, and this time, the goal counted. Today, he's the all-time leader in goals for Blaugrana by quite a distance. The one downside of Messi coming from La Masia, every player to be compared to him. The Japanese Messi, the Croatian Messi. If there is a talented, undersized youngster with incredible dribbling and an ability to score goals, they are cast in the Argentine's tremendous shadow, to no fault of Messi. We've often spoken about the future ways that Piqué, Puyol, Xavi, or even Iniesta could retire to the club in their post-playing days. But what about Messi? Will he fade off into the sunset after his career? Or will he become a vital figure in the club's future? And in what role? Regardless of any future role, 6 Ballon d'Ors, 6 European Golden Shoes, 8 times La Liga's best player, 6 Pichichi trophies, 34 team trophies in all is the haul so far for the Argentine. So there you have it, the list of the top 10 players to come from La Masia. But here we are at the end of the list, and some of you might still be wondering, what exactly is La Masia? Masia is an Iberian farmhouse, usually made from stone, and that was the obvious nickname given to the stone farmhouse sitting next to the Camp Nou. The academy itself should probably be called the Cantera, as the farmhouse itself stopped housing the kids in 2011, when the project outgrew the building. Yet, La Masia is the term that has become synonymous with FC Barcelona. As Johan Cruyff predicted, that's where the talent comes from. If you want more videos like this, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, as always, stay safe and Força Barça!